In this podcast episode, clinical psychologist Jen Unwin delves into the complex issue of people's struggles with sugar consumption and problematic eating behaviors. She explores the ongoing debate about whether these difficulties stem from a mere lack of willpower or if they represent real addiction-like disorders linked to sugar and ultra-processed foods. The conversation covers how these foods affect the brain's reward system, the controversy surrounding food addiction as a formal diagnosis, the evolutionary lens on sugar cravings, and practical steps for recovery. Jen also shares insights from her clinical experience and personal journey with food addiction, intertwining biological, psychological, and social perspectives on the subject. Jen highlights that blaming willpower alone for difficulties in controlling sugar intake is misguided and can lead to self-blame and shame. Sugar, much like substances such as alcohol, nicotine, and caffeine, activates the brain's reward centers by boosting dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and motivation. This neurological response creates a primitive drive, often bypassing logical reasoning, making it extraordinarily hard for some people to resist sugary foods. While environmental adjustments and some degree of willpower can help, once an addiction-like pattern develops, willpower by itself becomes insufficient to break the cycle. Therefore, the issue is far more about the biochemical and neurophysiological effects of sugar and ultra-processed foods than a simple failure to exercise self-control. The concept of food, especially sugar or ultra-processed food addiction, remains contentious among researchers and clinicians. A common objection is that food is necessary for survival, so it cannot be addictive in the same way as non-essential substances like alcohol. Jen counters this by emphasizing that not all foods are the same and that sugar and refined carbohydrates, which create similar brain reward effects, are not biologically necessary. These substances are often engineered to maximize their addictive potential, much like cigarettes once were. Corporate strategies influenced by tobacco industry tactics have led to highly processed foods formulated to hook consumers by lighting up brain reward centers, as detailed in Michael Moss's book Hooked. She argues the terminology should reflect this distinction by focusing on ultra-processed food use disorder rather than food addiction broadly. Recognizing these foods as addictive for some people parallels society's understanding of alcohol use disorder, legitimizing the struggles faced and fostering sympathy rather than judgment. Looking through an evolutionary lens, Jen explains that the brain's reward circuitry originally evolved to motivate survival behaviors, such as eating as much high-energy food as possible when available, since food scarcity was a genuine threat. For hunter-gatherer ancestors, sugary foods were scarce and seasonal, making occasional overindulgence beneficial for fat storage ahead of lean periods. The natural environment did not support continual access to sugar or ultra-processed foods, so ancient humans never needed an off switch for consumption. In contrast, today's environment offers these foods year-round in infinite quantities and often delivered directly to our doors. This shift has removed any natural limitations on intake. Jen shares anecdotes from tribespeople who gorge on honey only when they find it after hard work, illustrating that the ease of access today greatly amplifies the risk of addiction-like behavior, even for those who are naturally prone. Many people know intellectually about the harms of excess sugar, its links to type 2 diabetes, obesity, and dental decay, and may even try elimination diets with initial success. Yet relapse is common, leading to feelings of guilt and failure when others seem able to indulge occasionally without problems. Jen underscores that knowledge alone does not translate easily into sustained behavior change due to the deep neurobiological and emotional factors involved. The addiction cycle and brain wiring create cravings and compulsions that override rational intentions. This is why simplistic messages blaming lack of willpower can be unhelpful and damaging. Moreover, sugary and ultra-processed foods are often crafted to hit the bliss point of taste, triggering cravings that can be extremely difficult to resist, especially in vulnerable individuals. Jen introduces a screening tool named Craved, based on 6 symptoms from the World Health Organization's substance use disorder criteria, but adapted for problematic eating. These include cravings and compulsions, needing to reach for more, tolerance, activities neglected due to preoccupation with certain foods, losing control over portion size, experiencing withdrawal symptoms on elimination, and continued use despite harm. Scoring 3 or more suggests addictive-like symptoms. For those experiencing even 1 or 2, it may still be helpful to be cautious of the effects these foods have on the brain and body. The discussion illustrates how behaviors such as secretive food purchasing and lying to loved ones resemble addiction patterns associated with other substances. Because the addiction diminishes frontal lobe functioning, the rational decision-making area of the brain, people in the throes of cravings often can't simply think their way out. Jen stresses the importance of planning ahead during moments of clarity when the rational brain is fully active. Writing down triggers, problematic foods, and warning signs, I know I'm in trouble when, externalizes these issues and supports better self-control. It also helps to create a supportive environment by removing or limiting access to addictive foods at home and negotiating boundaries with partners. Some people even use lockboxes for forbidden items to minimize temptation. Practicing assertiveness in social settings and rehearsing responses to peer pressure can empower individuals and generalize to improved self-advocacy in many life areas. Jen discusses 2 main approaches to changing problematic eating: abrupt abstinence, cold turkey, and gradual reduction. Both have pros and cons and should be tailored to individual preference and clinical circumstances. Cold turkey can be effective for those with binary thinking who prefer clear-cut rules, but may lead to uncomfortable withdrawal symptoms lasting a week or more. Medical supervision is advised for people on medications such as for diabetes or blood pressure. Gradual reduction may feel gentler, but can prolong exposure to addictive substances and maintain cravings. Regardless of method, recovery requires attention beyond food, addressing emotional triggers, building healthier coping strategies, and establishing new habits that can replace food as a source of comfort or distraction. Food addiction frequently intersects with emotional eating and trauma histories. Many use sugary and ultra-processed foods as comfort, a way to regulate mood or soothe feelings of loneliness, stress, or trauma. Citing thinkers like Gabor Mate, Jen acknowledges that eating behaviors often reflect efforts to heal psychological wounds or fill emotional voids. This means treatment must be holistic, combining abstinence strategies with therapy, self-care, and alternative sources of comfort, such as exercise, mindfulness, or hobbies. Importantly, different people need different approaches. A one-size-fits-all recommendation like "don't restrict any foods" can be counterproductive in those with addiction problems. Jen distinguishes food addiction from conventional eating disorders, such as binge eating or anorexia. Whereas many eating disorder treatment models promote all foods fit approaches to normalize eating and reduce restriction, this can be harmful for people with food addiction who cannot safely consume certain trigger foods without losing control. For these individuals, abstinence from specific addictive foods may be the only path to recovery. Misdiagnosis and mistreatment are common because food addiction is not yet a recognized diagnostic category, resulting in a lack of tailored treatment options. Formal recognition would improve access to appropriate therapies and clarify treatment pathways. The food industry plays a major role in the addiction crisis, designing products that maximize addictive potential through combinations of sugar, fat, salt, and refined grains. Advertising, product placement, and availability saturate modern life, making resistance incredibly challenging. Jen highlights how this parallels the historical deceit and manipulation of tobacco companies. Despite widespread health consequences, including soaring rates of obesity, metabolic diseases, and associated mental health issues, the societal response remains inadequate. Hospitals and schools, ironically, often offer ultra-processed foods, indicating a disconnect between knowledge and practice. Hope emerges as a central theme in Jen's clinical work and personal journey. Recognizing food addiction as a genuine disorder offers relief from shame and self-blame and motivates change. Recovery is not linear and may include setbacks, but regaining control over eating patterns can result in dramatic improvements in physical, mental, and social well-being. Many people experience renewed energy, cognitive clarity, and a revived desire to exercise and engage meaningfully with life. Jen stresses that it is never too late to change. Even those in their 60s and beyond have made profound transformations. The right support, community, and tailored strategies make recovery achievable. Managing sugar intake in children presents distinct challenges, especially within a toxic food environment rife with cues and marketing. Jen advocates creating a home environment where ultra-processed and sugary foods are limited or absent, and replacing treats with non-food rewards and engaging activities. Teaching children to connect diet with feelings and health outcomes fosters awareness and agency as they grow. While acknowledging the ease and social pressure to provide sugary treats, she encourages parents to focus on balanced, nutrient-rich meals and involve kids in cooking. This foundation helps counter the addictive potential of sugar from an early age. While scientific evidence remains limited, Jen speculates there might be links between early life feeding practices such as bottle feeding, especially with formulas high in sugar, and later vulnerability to sugar addiction. Genetic predisposition and childhood family culture strongly influence eating behaviors. Modeling by parents and the emotional context around food, such as using sweets for comfort or bonding, can embed habits that endure into adulthood. Recognizing these factors is important for empathy and effective interventions, but should not induce guilt or blame, especially for necessary feeding choices in infancy. Practical advice includes identifying specific gateway or trigger foods that cause loss of control and abstaining from them entirely. Writing plans and trigger logs during moments of clarity strengthens self-management. Avoiding stockpiling or leaving tempting foods accessible reduces risk. Connecting with supportive communities or professional programs improves success rates by providing accountability and shared experience. Jen also notes how tools like continuous glucose monitors can provide real-time feedback, linking dietary choices with blood sugar fluctuations, helping some people understand and reduce cravings related to blood sugar instability rather than addiction per se. Navigating social settings where sugary foods are present requires assertiveness and planning. Jen recommends rehearsing responses to peer pressure and sharing health goals honestly with friends and family. Although resistance may provoke discomfort or pushback, gaining confidence in setting boundaries cultivates broader personal growth. Learning to advocate for oneself protects recovery and can strengthen relationships by fostering respect and understanding. Connection with others who get it is vital to long-term success. Jen emphasizes a common phenomenon in addiction recovery: substituting one addictive behavior for another. Individuals with food addiction may develop new addictive tendencies, such as increased coffee or alcohol use, especially post-interventions like bariatric surgery, which limit food intake but do not address underlying neurochemical needs. Understanding these risks helps in crafting holistic recovery strategies that address behavioral and emotional health comprehensively. A formal diagnostic category, such as ultraprocessed food use disorder, is crucial for validating the experiences of those affected, reducing stigma, and guiding research and treatment. It facilitates the allocation of resources and establishes clear clinical pathways. Recognition would benefit individuals, families, healthcare providers, and public health by framing addiction to these problematic foods alongside other substance use disorders, promoting sympathy and effective intervention rather than blame and neglect. Jen's charity is actively campaigning to have this recognition adopted by global health authorities like the World Health Organization. Throughout the episode, Jen shares poignant examples from patients and personal anecdotes that illustrate the depth and complexity of food addiction. Stories include secret purchases of ice cream, the roller coaster of shame and relapse, and the liberating transformation achieved through abstinence and lifestyle change. Her openness about her own struggles enriches the discussion with authenticity and hope, confirming that even professionals can be vulnerable, and that recovery is a journey open to all who seek it.